Very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to yet another uLaw webinar. Thank you very much for joining us today. And in today's topic, we're going to be talking about how we integrate uLaw with some of the leading payment integration gateways or software companies, with specific focus on the most recent integration that uLaw has with the TD institution, the TD Bank. It was definitely part of our roadmap, and we've now accomplished to tightly integrate with TD, very similar to our integration in the past with Pivotal as well as Moneris. And we're going to highlight the components of that integration, the ease of use that you've always come to see of uLaw, and how legal professionals who bank with TD can benefit from some of the great rates that they provide you. Just as a quick note, today's webinar is not accredited yet for CPD credits, but it's definitely going to be a pretty interactive, one of those hands-on experience of how you would integrate now TD payment integration gateway with the uLaw. And we're also obviously going to highlight some of the key components of the integration, why do it at all, for those who are just getting started with the whole concept of legal accounting and getting paid online. So we're going to quickly take some time to look at that, but jump from slides, get into an actual demo of how I could show you integrating the TD credentials with the uLaw and how you can start accepting both retainers as well as payments right within uLaw by integrating with TD. So for today's agenda, like any other uLaw webinar, today's webinar also has a great agenda for you. And the agenda talks about what value does obviously the payment integration bring to your business. Okay, we want to highlight and talk about why do this at all, regardless of which institution you work with. How can that streamline important aspects of your business, which is getting paid? A very, very important aspect of your business is obviously getting paid for the service. We're going to talk about how this integration streamlines the process, makes it a lot more easier and seamless. We've spoken about in the previous years of our working with integrated partners, we work with Pivotal and Moneris, and as part of our roadmap, our first integration now with a leading institution of the TD Canada Trust, and we do have now opportunities to extend that with other banks in Canada. We're also looking at some time when Square is compliant to integrate with them as well. We're going to quickly highlight the compliant methods of collecting funds electronically in trust. Okay, so really talk about how not to integrate payment collections in your legal firm, the boundaries and rules and regulations that you need to consider, and how TD, specifically TD in this case, or Moneris and Pivotal, have enabled you to be trust compliant through their gateway systems. Okay, and as I mentioned, after the slide deck, we're going to jump right into looking at uLaw, walking you through a scenario where you set up your TD account right within uLaw and look at a couple of scenarios where we accept retainers, we accept payments. We'll also talk about how easy we've made it for you to send invoices with a link for your clients to pay it at their own leisure. Okay, so we're going to talk about those three different use cases today as well. So what are the pros? Why do this at all? Right? What is the whole concept behind integrating this payment solution with the uLaw? So if you really look at it, one of the most fundamental pros or reasons why we've done that is to get paid faster and accurately. I would have to go one step further and say get paid in a very secure, fast, and accurate manner. Okay, so it's not just getting paid fast and accurate, it's actually getting paid in a very secure, so your clients can be rest assured that this is a secure portal through which transactions are being accomplished. And for your law firm, obviously, it's a much faster way of accepting payments. And the most important aspect is being accurate. And when I talk about that, it's, if it's the exact amount, that's the exact amount that's getting transacted. The fact that you have a credit card, and let's say you have a boundary on your credit card, and if $500 doesn't cut it, you don't want to deal with bounce checks and things like that. So a great way for you to get paid fast, secure, and accurately. Very cost-effective and convenient. Well, let's talk about the convenience first. The convenience, obviously, because that actually adds up to the cost. So there's a lot of tangible and intangible costs between collecting checks as payments, which you consider maybe cheaper than paying a certain percentage for these credit card companies. But in the legal world, really depending on the type of area of practice that you focus on, you may avoid the unnecessary trips to the banks to deal with bounce checks and so on and so forth, and having to go back to the client. And that's a lot of time and money spent that can be very easily made efficient and robust, and at the end of the day cost effective, because you're saving all the time by having such an integrated solution where you know right away when that individual gives you the credit card whether that card can be processed or not, right? It's many times overlooked, but that's how we talk about cost effectiveness, is what's the total time and value that you have spent as a legal professional in being able to collect that payment from your client. The fact that we're on the cloud with any internet connected device, you now have the opportunity to access this anytime, anywhere on many devices. The fact that now you can accept major credit cards, okay? It's not just a specific, it's not like you're going to Costco and you're just going to be dealing with MasterCard. You have the opportunity now to give your clients the flexibility of being able to pay through one and or more, depending on their situation, across a majority of players, Visa, MasterCard, Amex, and Discover, for example. And the fourth important pro, specifically for a legal professional, is ensuring that both the trust payments, whether it's a retainer or a retainer top-up, new retainer, and a client payment get dealt with in the most compliant manner as per the rules of the law societies that you're governed by. TD Canada Trust, Moneris, and Pivotal ensure that there's trust compliance throughout the way when they collect that payment, especially when it's for a retainer. So let me take a step back and explain what that really is. Let's say that you have a $500 retainer. All these credit card companies do charge you a transaction fee or a service fee, and that could range anywhere from 1% to 2%, and it depends on a variety of reasons. One could be the number of transactions that you think that you would have in a month. It could be the dollar amount. But there are many factors that these institutions provide you with, and different rate cards for different types of scenarios. But regardless of that, regardless of what that charge is, these institutions ensure that that particular service fee is withdrawn from your general account. So the $500 gets deposited untouched directly into your trust account, and let's say it's a 1%. So that $5 that they're going to now take as a service fee is now being withdrawn only from your general account by leaving your trust account untouched and ensures compliance, okay? Because you don't want to get back to sending that $5 back. Then you have to deal with reconciliations. You have to deal with bank errors, etc., etc. These companies, one way in, another way out, simple and straightforward, okay? Okay. How do you accomplish that? So how do you do the online credit? So by dealing with a separate terminal ID or kiosk for both trust and general, and giving the access points to be able to transact with these two separate accounts individually, they made it simple and easy for you to do so, and as well have made it simpler and easy for software companies like us to integrate with them. And keep in mind that both the trust, general, regardless, they are secure channels, so they're all HTTPS and secure, and either way, they're well secured during the transaction. It makes it simpler now that you understand that there are two separate accounts where the workflow works from, right? Exactly knows where the funds are going to be deposited. You exactly know where the funds are going to be withdrawn from. So you can certainly expect what's to happen when you take that retainer or the client payment. If it's a client payment, obviously it's a direct deposit into your general account, as well as the service fee is being withdrawn from your general account. So you can pretty much expect those two debits and credits from your account. Managing and streamlining the process and the record keeping of these transactions as they happen. Okay, so that's a very critical component that adds to your practice management lifecycle, is the ability for you now to transact, because each and every time you make a transaction, there is an email that's sent out to you. You also have your own portal within these different institutions, especially TD provides you with a robust portal that you can manage, looking at all the transactions that have happened till date. That gives you a better sense of consensus, if you will, of the transactions as they happen. You're not dealing with checks. Sometimes you misplace checks, then you don't know. It extends the lifetime of the 6 months, let's say, validity of a check. So there's many combinations. Cash can be crazy if you're dealing with cash sometimes. So the fact that you work with a reputed online credit card transaction company, not only are your transactions secure, but they're also well record kept and managed and maintained for you to always have access to. And obviously the most important reason, or one of the fundamental reasons why you want to do this, is being assured that at the time that you process these transactions, the funds that they are approved for are right. So you're not dealing with bounced checks, as I mentioned. If you have a $500 retainer and you transact it online, it's going to hit real time your credit card of your client, and it's going to come back and tell you whether it's declined or approved. If it is declined, then you are going to kindly ask for another credit card, as it did not go through, right then and there. Especially imagine the situation where your client is in front of you and in your office, just starting a new matter, and you're getting a retainer. When he's right across the table, he gives you an American Express, didn't go through. Hopefully the chances are that he can now give you a credit card, Visa or something else, right? Okay. So now kind of gets into the crux of how do you accomplish this with uLaw. Okay, as I said, this is not for CPD credits, not yet, rather, but in the general sense, we're going to walk you through the product as well and share with you how this is accomplished. Now that, let's say you have an uLaw account, you have a TD account, how do you marry these two? It's a one-time setup. It's as simple and straightforward as it can be. It's right under our settings, and I'm going to skip these slides because I'm actually going to show it to you in a live demo in a few minutes. But quite honestly, it's where you go into your settings, you go into our accounts, and there you have a payment collection as one of the options. You choose TD Canada Trust, and you obviously now talk to your TD representative, ensure that you mention that you're a legal professional so they know exactly in Canada, and they know that they need to give you your own trust account. They set you up with your own general account. Obviously, you negotiate the rates with them based on your situation, and you're all good to go. And TD would then provide you with a secret key, a username, or sometimes a terminal ID, or an account key for that. And there's an individual key for both your trust and general account. You bring that, enter it into uLaw, and save it, and you're all set. Okay? Again, we've spoken about this before, but the 4 components that I want you to take away from today as to why you should consider an online credit card processing facility, and this could be one of the many different ways in which you accept payments, right? The fact that it's efficient, it's secure, it's very flexible. We spoke about that it being accessible anywhere. You also have access to all the record keeping. It's secure. As I said, it's fully encrypted with tokenization, and it's very cost effective. Cheap might, it's very relative. but in the very relative term, it's cost effective if you were to compare with scenarios where you're accepting a lot of retainers that are bouncing and you got to go back and forth, deal with reconciliation. So imagine a situation where it's the 25th of the month, someone gives you a retainer, and that's the same day that you have to do your trust reconciliation. And for some reason, you thought that the check's going in, but it's bounced. The next month, you need to reconcile that particular trust check not having cleared the bank. Okay, so that's time and money that you would spend as a legal firm in having to deal with that. Whereas if you have now the flexibility of accepting that through an online credit card processing facility that's secure, that's safe, at a small charge, obviously there is a service fee, nothing's free in this life anymore, then that's the kind of comparison you want to make, and that's the value proposition you would have to sell yourself. Okay? Okay, so let's skip the whole slideshow of how to do it, and let's actually do it within uLaw. I'm going to leave the slide open real quick. We do work with a representative from TD, Treasurer Baker, and we'll be more than happy to provide the information after the demo as well. And just a quick roadmap. We obviously have considered institutions in Canada, and we've started with TD, and now we're working with closely working with the other leading institutions, RBC, BMO, CIBC. We're also looking to build the capability of accepting payments on our mobile platform. As you know, today uLaw is available both on iOS and Android. Our next version that's due end of the month, early October, is going to allow you to docket matters, and the subsequent next version of that is going to allow you to accept payments. Takes the same tokenization, the same security, the same user IDs, and making it a lot more convenient now to accept payments, especially if you're at court and they can give you a credit card right there. Okay? And the last but not the least, we're also seriously considering how to make it easy for the ledgers to happen automatically. As you know, uLaw does all of the ledgering behind the scenes. It does it for you in a way that it's compliant and makes law audit reports simple and easy and a click of a button. We're also looking to extend that once you accept a payment through this online gateway, especially when a client pays at their own leisure, whether we should provide an intermediary way for it to automatically ledger within uLaw. Okay, so that's just some things to keep in mind of things that's coming down the road. And for those who are just joining us who don't know who uLaw is, we are a proud Canadian legal accounting and practice management software company based out of Ottawa. And legal accounting, practice management, and business accounting is what we do. And kindly do check us out on our website, uLawPractice.com. Let me now quickly shift gears to, okay. So I'm now logged into this fictitious user account of Roger Moore of uLaw. We call it the Playground account. And let's go through the situation where let's first look at our settings and what needs to be accomplished. We'll add a client and we'll create a matter, and we'll kind of look at three distinct use cases, one being a retainer, one being a client payment that you accept while maybe picking up the phone and doing it right within uLaw, and the third use case where you are now able to generate an invoice, and as long as there's a client owing of funds, we now make it easier for us to include a link right within your electronic or e-invoice, if you will, digital copy of your invoice, and when you email that to your client, he or she can then click on it and be able to pay you at their own leisure. Okay? So the first things first. Okay, thank you very much. I think that's a compliment from one of our attendees. I'm going to go into settings, and you see multiple options. I'm going to jump right into accounts. So for those who are familiar with uLaw, this is kind of how you really personalize your experience of how software can best serve your firm based on your situation. And right here you see this new option of payment collection. Okay? So now you look at Now, because I'm in the Playground account, obviously I have the test account, so please do not try that at home or your own firm. When you do get your own TD Canada Trust information, which is your IDs, you would get something like this. You would get a terminal ID, its own secret key that you enter one time, and you would also get a terminal ID for your general account and get its own secret key as well. So you would then take that information, enter it into uLaw, and you would click Save. Okay, so I'm basically using a test account, obviously, so that I can demonstrate this to you. In real life, you would use your own accounts with your real life TD Canada Trust information and use that to transact your real clients. Let's jump in. Let's create a new contact for the purposes of today's demonstration. I'm going to say clients. Let's quickly add Mr. Henry Ford. I'm going to say here's a client referral, and let me just add a quick address. And I'll actually save it, and I'll jump right into a matter so we can create a matter for Mr. Henry Ford. And at any time during this presentation, I kindly encourage and request you to use the chat window to ask any questions that you may have. Our support staff are available to answer those questions, and if they can't, I will hold them till the end of the session and answer them one at a time. So here we are with a blank slate, a brand new matter page, and let's look at a real estate transaction. Condo. Okay. All right, so here we are. We've created a real estate matter for Mr. Henry Ford, which is a purchase of a condo. Probably not the best example I probably could have taken. You keep in mind that you can now accept payments right from a real estate perspective. Obviously, this would be where the other side of where you're paying actually a check to the other lawyer, so on and so forth. Maybe I'll try and keep this to be a simpler one. Landlord and tenant, maybe. Okay. So let's first look at the simpler aspects of it and jump into slightly more complex ones later on. So first things first, you're going to accept a retainer. So let's say that's how you manage your business. You're going to accept that retainer right here. This is how you would do it in uLaw to enter that retainer. But let's assume that this client is in front of you right now. So you can actually do it when Henry Ford is in your office today. And let's look at that $1,000 retainer. Now, traditionally, you could use the cash bank account. You could tell us if there's other ways. In the past, you could have just told us, transacted it in a different, system, or maybe you had a swipe terminal. Even with TD, maybe you had a terminal ID there. You swiped his credit card. It will come back with the transaction number. You put it in. That's how you would traditionally do it. But now you see this new blue button here called Payment Collection. Instead of having to do all of that, you click on it. It takes you, we remember now based on the settings that this is a terminal ID that's accessed. This is a retainer, and hence to use the trust account from your settings. That is your terminal ID for your trust account. That's the amount. We'll make sure you're happy with that. You validate it. You're sure you want to collect that payment now. You go ahead and you click Now. And now it opens up the opportunity for you to collect the individual's credit card information with everything else that the bank or the institution is going to ask you for. And let's put it in. Again, Some of these are mandatory, some of them are not. Okay, so let me go ahead and name on card. Ford, that's a Visa. And I have this readily available. I hope this works. There you go. So you put the individual's name, put the credit card information, you put the expiry date, etc. Now obviously this is a test account, but it still did go out to the server. TD has given us a test account that you could go transact. It goes out there, it transacted, and it said it's a responsive approved. So let's say that the credit card was invalid. This would come back with a response of failed and would give you an ID for that as well. All you need to do now is copy this, enter order ID. Okay, that's what we say. We say, please copy the entire information for future reference. All you got to do now here is say all of that. It is free text. You can give them a receipt as when Henry Ford is still out there, and you hit apply. So Henry Ford came into your office, you took his information, you took that first retainer right by integrating with TD in your settings as a prerequisite. It's just a one-time. And you're now able to transact, accept his credit card information without actually a terminal ID. You just had to enter the card information. And you accepted that, and it would tell you in real time whether that particular credit card has the required funds. It came back with it being approved. You just took what the, that's the component that in the roadmap we're looking to automatically ledger. Whereas let's say it's approved, it automatically goes in instead of you having to do it. Okay? And here it is. You have the retainer receipt readily available. You sign it, Henry signs it, and he's good to go. So you're not dealing with bounce checks. You're not just accepting a check. You're not dealing with cash and losing it. It's safe, convenient, secure, and bigger scheme of things, cost-effective as well. Okay? So now let's look at our second scenario, which is for a client payment. So let me add another matter for Mr. Henry Ford. I'll just say new matter. I'll say this is small claims. Okay. And let me say that this was a offense issue. Not a great day for spelling. I'm going to go ahead and save that matter. It's now available. It's a offense issue that I've created for Henry. And this is the second matter that I'm using it for. And in this case, let's say I'm not accepting retainers. It's just a straight docket, and I'm just going to accept payment. Okay? In which case, I'm just going to go ahead and enter a docket. Initial client meeting. First meeting with the client to discuss the matter. I'm going to say let me call it a billable time. We'll untoggle the flat rate, which is a setting, and I'll say I'm going to charge you for 2 hours of my $200 per hour. I spent 2 hours. Very prudent. I'll hit save. That's going to charge me the $400 plus tax. Right? I'm just going to charge the client. In some cases where you don't want to charge the client the HST, you could just say edit default tax rate. Okay, make that 0. It's going to come back with only the $400 without the tax. And let's go ahead and invoice this client. Okay? Yeah, there you go. So I've just docketed the work for that particular matter. And I'm just going to raise the invoice for $400 without tax. And based on your payment terms, so let's say this is 20 days down the line, 30 days down the line, you call the individual asking him for the payment, right? So there's two ways of doing that. So one is the old school way. Here's your invoice, well aligned, got all the information, the amount due, what was it for, no taxes. Now there's two ways that you could actually accept this payment. Now you could go behind this person, go to a collection agency, many things, but you are now making the phone call to get that payment. The other way of doing it is being able to make it easy for your clients to pay it at their own leisure. Okay, so maybe they don't like to be called all the time. Keep it simple, keep it real. Send them this link that says, hey, please click here to pay the balance of your credit card. Client looks at it, very, very simple. Same screen that you looked at it within uLaw is now made available, as you can see, in a very secure way. And this is a TD Canada Trust link. You are going out of uLaw, but your client gets to use this. Obviously, you're going to provide all of the information. He would provide all this information, right? I'm not going to do that. So that's the order number. That's the amount. I will use the same information that I have. Okay. So they could add a little thank you for your service. And they actually transact at their own leisure. Let's say they're in a different part of the world, they could still do this, right? Maybe you call them, they're not available, they're partying or having a fun vacation internationally, and they could still do this online, okay? When this happens, you have the opportunity to be sent an email as well, which has all this information. And the only part that you have to do is tell uLaw that that has actually happened. You hit the question mark, or you can hit action and accept the client payment. Tell us when this was paid for, how was it paid. That was the approval cord. And let's say now that you know that he's paid for it, this goes against the fence issue, as there are multiple matters, you can now create that receipt for Henry Ford for that matter. Okay? Not sure what my settings are, but technically, if my settings are right, oh, there you go. As soon as Henry made that payment at his own leisure, you as the legal professional get this email that Henry Ford, for this particular matter, okay, so this is the note, right? And the client is Mr. Henry Ford. The matter is HF126915 was the fence issue. So you have all this information right here. So you could basically take the reference number, or you can just copy that, just like how we did it, put it on there, and give him the receipt. The other way of doing it, let me quickly run a report that will tell me anyone that's owing me money. So let me go into my invoice balance report. Now this report, obviously, as you know, gives me an idea of everyone who owes me money, whether it's trust money that I need to transfer from one account to the other, from trust to general, or if it's just payment that I haven't still collected over a period of time. And let me use that as an example. If you don't want the client to have that access, or let's say they didn't use it, and you're calling out to them, then this is one report that you want to keep handy. Keep this report open and open up the contact screen or the matter screen, and you're making one call after the other and starting to accept payments right within uLaw. So here you go. Mr. Gonzalo John Fernandez owes us $45.25, right? So how do you go about it? Go into your matter screen, type in the client's name. There you go, Mr. Gonzalo John Fernandez. Yep. Want to continue. The question mark. There you go. The client owes me $45.25. In fact, I have some money left in trust as well. You call him. He says, I can only pay you $40. He gives you either a credit card number, or he says he's going to send you a check, and the check number is that. And you hit apply. As simple as that. And then you move on to the next individual. Okay. If I were to rerun that report, this would not say 45, it would just say 525. So that's how you actually go about doing that. So we've now looked at kind of three distinct scenarios. The first being where you're accepting it as a retainer. The second where you're accepting it as a general payment, with the only caveat that you generated the invoice and you actually attached a link that's automatically happening in uLaw. If you are working with a credit card processing company, such as TD or Pivotal or Moneris, we attach that link on your behalf along with that invoice that you can now electronically send via email to your client. And your client, he or she, would actually look at it, click on it, and pay for that amount. And they could pay partial too. So you can, that's a common question. Do they have to pay the full amount? Obviously, you expect them to. They could still actually pay you the partial amount. You just accept that. As soon as they've paid for it at their own leisure, you get an email notification telling you that this particular invoice for this particular matter for this particular client has been paid for. All you need to do now is copy that final approved transaction number into the client's matter. And the third was just the old school way, which still happens. The old school way of just generating a report such as the invoice balance, and then going one after the other, getting into the client's matter. But Peyton Manning owes me a lot of money. You're calling, or your assistant's calling them, going into the matter screen, just hitting the question mark to accept that $1,655, right? You hit apply. And obviously you can give them a receipt. A payment receipt is always a great idea to make sure there's enough transparency and prudence in that entire transaction. Keep in mind that this is a very simple and easy way of, you can be rest assured of the security and the peace of mind that goes behind accepting the payments. And that was one of the core components of today's presentation, was to show you how easy in being able to integrate uLaw with TD Canada Trust. We looked at how you can go into your settings. Just choose the payment collection to be TD Canada Trust. Provide your terminal ID, your secret key, which TD will provide you once you sign up with them. They would also provide you with the general ID. And again, if you only have general IDs, or you're only going to deal with general, don't have trust, then you really don't have to worry about trust. You're just going to bring in the general ID. And the use case that we use for accepting client payments would apply right away as well. Okay. Going back to my presentation, to this particular slide, obviously the fact that it was efficient, it was time saving, it was flexible. I mean, as I mentioned, this could be on any device connected to the internet at any time, and you also gave the flexibility to your client, and that could be a big differentiator for your legal firm as well. And the flexibility that you offer as the end service is a key component. It's secure. You looked at how it was HTTPS 256-bit encrypted, and one of the reputed institutions in Canada. And it was cost effective because, if you have many such transactions, then those rates, those service fee rates, are definitely going to come down. We're also considering some other payment gateways outside of these Canadian banks and institutions that have other different innovative ways of taking service fees. Like there's a Canadian company called Pluto that accepts $1 for every transaction. It's as simple as that. So we're also thinking of integrating with them in our roadmap. So you can be rest assured that the service fee is a cost, obviously, for the amount of flexibility and ease of use and peace of mind that you get. But it becoming a commoditized world, it's just a matter of time because before those rates become lower and lower, like anything else in life. And we leave it to the best folks for you, the legal professionals, who better than you to negotiate a deal with these banks. So we, as a company, do not negotiate the rates, but what we try and do is facilitate that conversation with someone senior on the other end, making it easier for our clients. And what we've tried to accomplish is make the whole accessibility, the whole integration of it that much more seamless and efficient. Okay? So I'm actually going to open the floor now that I have enough time to ask if you have any questions or specific use cases that you'd like me to showcase. But the key takeaway from today's presentation is the fact that now, apart from Moneris and Pivotal Payments, uLaw also integrates with TD Canada Trust in a very similar way, in a similar powerful way. And we encourage you to explore this easy and convenient and secure way to accept client payments as well as trust retainer payments for your law firm or your legal firm. And again, thank you once again for participating. I now open the floor. Kindly use the chat window to ask any questions that you may have. Okay, so we've got our first question by email. What's a typical service fee rate that these institutions would charge? That's actually a really good question. As I mentioned, these rates differ from institution to institution, and I did mention early on. It's a conversation that needs to be had. I wish I could tell you a quick answer, but in general, I think it's anywhere from 1% to sometimes 2 to 2.25%. So it is still, with these three institutions, from our limited experience, it's about 1% to about 2.25. But obviously, that's a huge range, depending on the type of transactions and the type of money that's being dealt with. Criminal real estate have much larger transactions that happen. So a 1% difference could be a huge amount of money. But I hope that answered your question. So it kind of really ranges. But what we do know from learning from our clients is there's typically two components that institutions are asking for. One could be based on the number of transactions that happen. So the more the merrier, as you know. So if you have a lot of transactions that happen, then obviously the service fees are going to be down, going to be lower. And the second component is the amount of dollars that are going to be transacted, and that becomes another component as well. Okay, so a question about accepting by e-transfer. Now, e-transfer or an email transfer is something that already happening where you're actually depositing it right into your bank. That's something this is specifically talking about credit card processing and being able to accept credit cards. So let's say this is an e-transfer. Let's say, then you're basically just going to mark it as an e-transfer, because with an e-transfer what happens is that the money is parked via email, let's say, or let's say some other electronic means other than credit card, and you just have to accept it, and depending on, especially if you have TD, you can actually accept that e-transfer and deposit it into your general account or your trust account directly, because it asks you where do you want to deposit that money, and it probably is accompanied by a security question, because that's how it works, that you know what the security question and answer is. You enter that, and then that ensures a secure transfer. So that's definitely one of the recommended, one of the newer ways that we see customers accept money. But if you want to accept credit cards as a way of processing, it's a great option too to consider. And yes, you can actually leave that as a flexibility for your clients. So let's say this is let me just create a quick matter. I'm just going to say e-transfer is an option of accepting a retainer. As long as there's a reference number and a secure way for you to know that the money is there, that's what we're looking to accomplish, right? I really hope that answered that question. I'm going to go into my retainer. You see email transfer, wire transfer. These are just some of the examples of an e-transfer. Whereas if the client shows up with a credit card, now you have the opportunity to accept that as well. Good question. So are these payment features compatible with iOS and or Android devices? In terms of the integration itself, uLaw today, as mentioned in my roadmap, today we do this through our browser. It's in our roadmap to actually bring this whole integration into your smartphone by using our app or our mobile platform. So we have both the web platform, which is available on any browser, internet-connected device in terms of desktop or laptop, or even a Chrome browser on an Android machine. But it's in our roadmap, and our next version, end of this month, early October, is going to give you the flexibility to docket matters. That's our first step where you can accept these dockets. And the next roadmap rollout, which hopefully be by late November, end of this year, our goal is to now allow our clients to start accepting payments through this integration right from your app. So it's definitely in our roadmap to do. Okay, so one more question. How do we know that our trust payment did not get transacted by? Okay, I'm going to just read that out. The question reads, how do we know that our trust account did not get transacted by? I think the question means that how can you be confident that the trust account was not dinged off that service fee? That's a really good question. Now, in principle, the fact that they separate out the two accounts, and obviously we as the service provider as well as partner, integration partner of these institutions, that's one of the first questions we ask them. It's documented, it's available, and they do have to support by it. The fact that they claim to be compliant, and the fact that the context of today's conversation obviously is TD. So we've tested it, that TD is very well compliant with what they claim, where if you do deposit the retainer into your trust account, the service fee will most definitely be transacted off your general account. But what's a good habit is to always keep a tab on your trust and general account, and for any reason there's an anomaly and there's a transaction, let's say $5 out of your trust account, please do bring it to either our notice or so that we can help with TD or we can facilitate that. But I don't think that should be the case, because it's a well-documented, tested, proven way that TD will transact out of your general account for those service fees. But that's a really good question. Another question is, how do I access my TD portal? Can I do that from uLaw? That's an interesting question. We currently do not integrate with your TD portal, but we are able to provide links to it. So you could always create links within your calendar or other places within uLaw. TD provides you with their own link, because that's going to need your username and password to log into the TD portal. But by all means, you can bookmark that link right with the uLaw and click it right with the uLaw and jump right into that. Are we dealing and negotiating with other institutions? Absolutely yes. So in our immediate roadmap, when I say roadmap, we're already in conversation with RBC, CIBC, and BMO, and we're just going through a testing phase. So just so you know, how this works is it takes at least about 6 weeks of testing, 6 to 8 weeks sometimes, depending on the institution. And we test for many things. For security, we test it for sanity in terms of ensuring that the right deposits and withdrawals are done. And we test for compatibility between our product and theirs. So yes, so we're already in discussions with these other institutions. Being a Canadian company and we're not a very big company. The fact that now we've got into TD gives us enough liberty, I think, or opportunity now to go sit on the table with other institutions, which we didn't have before, and that's the reality of the space. But to answer your question, yes, we are in conversation with RBC, CIBC, and BMO. And we'll certainly bring that facility to you as early as we can. We sincerely appreciate that feedback, and our goal is to continue supporting our clients and this legal community across Canada and try and make legal accounting simple, seamless, and compliant. That's been our goal. We'll probably hold the webinar for a few more minutes to ask any more questions that you may have. Obviously, this is not a this is pretty simple and straightforward example of how you can do it. Not rocket science, but there are nitty-gritties to it. We've made it really simple for you to look at and feel with. But behind the scenes, when you actually hit that submit button, there are many things that happen behind that scene to keep that transaction secure, tokenized, and because many things could potentially go wrong if it's not done the right way. Thank you very much. Okay, and if there are not any more questions, okay, perfect. Always the last question is when you're looking to close. Will this webinar be available? I'm thinking you're probably one of the newcomers to our webinars. So all our webinars are available, will be recorded and made available to you Monday, Tuesday next week. We'll send you a link to that. And if you don't see it there, you could always go look for us on our YouTube channel, and this webinar will be available there as well. Okay, another question is, how do I get more information about uLaw? Please do visit our website. I could quickly give you our website. We highly encourage you to go explore it. We do offer a free 30-day trial. We, in fact, have started a blog series that we post on LinkedIn, Facebook, as well as email it to all our clients and everybody who's in our mailing list. As per protocol, as per Castle, you are able to add your email into that blog or monthly webinar, seminar list as well. Yes, the iPhone 8, we're testing it, but the iPhone 7, which is the most recent one that we know that's well tested, uLaw is very much available on that. We support both iOS as well as Android. So it's available on the latest platform of Android, even if you're a BlackBerry user. You do have the Play Store now on your BlackBerry operating system, and on our other Android platforms, as well as the newer iOS platforms. The question is, how do I search for it? It's one word. It's uLawPractice. If you go to your Play Store or your iOS store, you just search for the word uLawPractice. Well, if that's hopefully the last question for the day, thank you very much, everyone, for joining me today, and we look forward to seeing you in our next webinar. Thank you, and have yourself a great afternoon.